Hello and welcome to Night Child Reviews. It's Saturday night, and I just want to jump on here real quickly just to talk about bootleggers and the role they play in the kind of Prince world. It's something I saw today, a kind of bootleg item. I just wanted to talk about that and kind of look at how perhaps the estate could potentially learn from the bootleggers in some ways, take the best of what they potentially do. So it's something that is really interesting. I saw an item today, a bootleg label, and I just wanted to kind of talk about that. So I'm just going to give it a few minutes just to see if a few people turn up. We never know. But really, I just want to talk about the role of bootlegs in the Prince community and how perhaps they, in some ways, sometimes are more in touch, perhaps, with what their customers ultimately want. I think that's something that is really interesting to me. Today, I saw I won't name. I'm not advertising bootlegs. I should say at the outset, just as a kind of caveat, I'm not condoning bootlegs. I'm not saying you should buy bootlegs. I'm not promoting bootlegs. I'm not selling bootlegs. I'm not doing anything else like that. I'm just talking about their role in the Prince community. And today I saw a vinyl, which is being released on a bootleg label, of tracks taken from the NPG Music Club, Volume 1, The Chocolate Invasion. And it's on a beautiful kind of marbled, kind of golden disc. And it's really beautiful. It's really kind of interesting. It's marbled. It's available. I have no idea how much it costs. Like I say, I wasn't not advocating buying it or anything like that. But it's really interesting to me that the bootleggers this week released another version of your small club, which is obviously very popular. But the NPG Music Club, the Chocolate Invasion vinyl, and it makes me think, about bootleggers and their role. Now, first of all, for me, the main thing about bootleggers is there's money in it. Now, clearly, there's money in it. That's why bootleggers do it. Now, some bootleggers will give away stuff for free. That's a different thing. But the ones that charge do it for money. Now, that proves to me there's demand. That proves to me there's demand for Prince music. If there was no money in it, people wouldn't do it for money. So clearly there's demand. And that's a good thing, because that means people are interested in Prince's music, they want Prince's music, and they're willing to pay for Prince's music. Now, to me, that is something the estate should take notice of and should think, well, that's something perhaps we should get in on. That's something we should, use, because every dollar, every pound that goes to a bootlegger obviously is a dollar that the estate could have had they offered that product. It's an amount that people were willing to spend. They were happy to spend on Prince products, but they couldn't buy it because it wasn't available, or the estate didn't release it, or whatever. So first of all, there's money in it, and that's a good thing. That proves that there's demand for Prince's product. And the first thing you want in any situation is demand for the product. So bootleggers prove there's demand. Now, second of all, people say, well, yes, there is demand, but how much money do bootleggers make? And I should clarify, there are different types of bootleggers. There are bootleggers that release the music, and there are bootleggers that kind of make clothes or items or hats or jumpers or T-shirts or socks or pants or anything they want. They make everything. But the point is that people say, well, how much money is there? Is it really a big amount? Is it worth the estate going after these things? Now, to me, the thing is, a lot of these products, if they were done to a high quality and the estate pushed them, they would have a much bigger reach. Now, these bootleggers consider it worthwhile to sell these products. Now, if the estate, with all their advertising, their industry connections, their power, their ability to market, their kind of PR ability, they can reach loads more people. They can reach huge amounts of people, and they can buy these products. So they have a big advantage over bootleggers because they have this big platform. They have this big way of reaching millions of Prince fans across the world. So that, to me, means that if the bootleggers are making money, the estate can make a lot more money. That's something they could really do. So I think there's that to say. I'd also say that some people say to me, well, yes, but there's a cost. You've got to create each of these things, and it costs money, and you've got to make these projects, and they take time. Fine, some things do, but I'm not talking about a super deluxe edition every time. I'm talking about a live show. I'm talking about the NPG audio series, the Chocolate Invasion, Slaughterhouse, The Undertaker. These things don't take much time. They really don't. So there's no huge cost to the estate. And ultimately, a lot of the things you buy from the estate, you don't get them for a while anyway. They take the money, they make the product, then they ship it out. Now, if that's possible, then there's no risk. There's no risk whatsoever. So putting things out like a live show costs them really nothing, especially if you put it out as a download or even as a DVD or whatever. The NPG audio, Slaughterhouse, Chocolate Invasion, all those tracks, doesn't cost anything really to put out. So this idea that it costs a lot of money to put these things out, I don't think it does. Ultimately, bootleggers prove there's demand. And then think about bootleggers, whatever people's opinion of them is, they listen and respond to demand. That's what they do. If they didn't, they wouldn't get any customers. And I think that's really, really important to know. And I think that's something the estate could do. And I want the stuff to be official. Let me be clear. I want the stuff to be official. I'd rather buy it from the estate if I could get it, decent price, get it quickly, brilliant. And I'd rather have official stuff. There are great stockists in the UK, like Rocket Pool. Rocket Pool are a brilliant UK thing. And I think that's, a key point. But I just want to kick off that debate by just talking about, how bootleggers really, can show the estate the way to respond quickly with these little projects, these quick win projects, get things out there, live shows. It costs almost nothing for a live show to get it out there as a download or a DVD. It really is bizarre. But anyway, I just want to hear what your comments are. So let's dive in. Funketeer. The estate is an utter mess so far, and if the situation will change is anyone's guess. This is an issue because obviously the estate has gone through, we've had 6 years of spending millions on lawyers and legal fees and court things and taxes and various things. And they say it's settled, the estate, but I don't know if it is, because obviously it's still half primary wave, roughly, and half the family. Now, I don't know if the family are all speaking, definitely on one page, but you've got to have the family speaking on the same page as primary wave. And I think that's important because what the family might want could be different to what primary wave want. They might have different things. And I think it's still of two halves. Now, what the priorities of Sharon Nelson might be, or the priorities of an executive at primary wave, I hope they're on the same page. They need to be on the same page because we've stalled. I think we were building up. They got off to a bit of a shaky start with the Prince estate. Piano and microphone was the wrong piano and microphone probably to release. They should have released, the final shows in 2016. But, ultimately they got better. They released the 1999 Super Deluxe, the Sign of the Times Super Deluxe. They really pushed it forward. And I think they were starting to build up a bit of momentum. And then, unfortunately, it stalled because of this situation. Now, obviously, there are various reasons for that. As Revolution points out, I don't think they're releasing anything until the Netflix documentary comes out in June of next year. Now, this has been a big issue because this Netflix documentary has a lot of pressure on it. It really has to work. Now, there's several things about this. First of all, there's different stories about whether this is all being held up because of the Netflix documentary, and they have signed a deal where certain rights have been bought by Netflix, and they're saying until we've put out our documentary, you can't use certain aspects, whether it's video or whatever. Some people have said it only applies to certain parts of the estate, whether it's music or video. So it's going to be interesting how much effect that has. But it has to be a thought out strategy, because the Netflix documentary coming out is just one aspect of it. And when that comes out, there's going to be, hopefully, and I think there will, huge interest in Prince. which means it's really, really, really important to take advantage of that, which means get a live show on Netflix, just a live show, musicology, 21 nights, whatever, doesn't matter. Get a live show out there, a live show that people genuinely haven't seen before. Get that on Netflix, cost nothing, stick it on there. That's a couple of million for the estate. Plus people will say, I liked that documentary. Prince is interesting. I want to see a live show. Also, get a new package out there. Some people have talked about having another kind of hits package. Some people like hits, some people don't. I think if you had a hits package, the kind of standard of Prince's first hits 1, 2, and B-sides, but for his whole career, right up to 2016, because there's a huge myth in the world and in people who are casual Prince fans who think that Prince is just an 80s artist, and it's just not true. There's so much he created, so much he did after that I think it's really important that if they do bring out a hits package, people say, oh, I've seen the Netflix documentary, really interesting, I want to hear more. And if we can get a hits package that includes all of the later work, songs from Artificial Age, Lotus Flower, musicology, just later on hits, I think that's really important because people will realize he didn't stop being a genius, he didn't stop creating amazing work, and I think that's really important. But they have to coordinate. So you have the documentary come out. The worst thing that will happen is if the documentary comes out, people go, oh, it's brilliant, fantastic, I love it, I want to get some Prince stuff, and then they can't find anything. They need to be able to, click a button on Netflix and say, here's a concert. They need to be able to, buy a brand new hits package and it's advertised. People go, oh, did you see the Netflix documentary? Grab this. I think that's really, really important. And I think we need to take full advantage of that because there's a lot of pressure on this because this documentary has to be great. I mean, they're talking about it as a series, a number of episodes. However much they do, obviously people will, they'll always want more. And I can understand that you can never go fully in depth with Prince because you'd have to have a documentary that would last for years. But I think they certainly owe it to Prince to do a documentary on all aspects of his career and not to just do what a lot of documentaries do, which they go in detail up till about Sign of the Times, Batman, and then they go, oh, and there was some other stuff in the 90s and after that. They just skip over it at the end. They do like 80% of the show on the 80s, and then they just, that can't happen. And I think that's really, really important. Revolution 86 again. He was more than just the 80s. He was a generational, an artist beyond compare. That's the thing. And that's a really important thing. I hope there's lots of things I hope this Netflix documentary does. First of all, it gets Prince's name out there on people's lips and people talking about what a genius he was. 2, it pushes the estate to get on with stuff, to get releasing these super deluxes, to get releasing these live shows. Prince is the greatest live performer of all time. There needs to be at least one live show for every tour he did, a DVD or Blu-ray or download or whatever. There needs to be at least one. So that's the first thing. And I think, it's really, really important that people realize that. And I think that's one of the things I most want from this documentary is for people to talk about Prince and for him to realize that he wasn't just an 80s artist at all. He was someone who created amazing work throughout his career and kept changing and challenging. He could have just rested on his laurels. He could have said after the 80s, right, I'm just going to play the hits and do nothing else, or I'm just going to do the same thing. He didn't do that. He challenged himself. He pushed himself. So it's really important that the Netflix documentary explores that. And it's important they explore him as a person. They need to talk about his philanthropy, the charity work. They need to talk about the way he was involved in lots of things behind the scenes that he didn't necessarily talk about, his amazing creativity and work with other artists. They need to talk about his amazing musicianship, because often that gets overlooked in the sense of they think of Prince as a singer and sometimes a guitarist, but often they don't talk about his keyboard skills. They don't talk about his drum programming, and they don't talk about so much work and an ability he had. So I think that's really, really, really important. So I hope the Netflix documentary does that. I hope it really gets people excited about Prince, because we've stalled. I really think we've stalled. I think we were building up a big momentum and we were kind of getting there, and we were releasing super deluxes and we were pushing it, and we were, really, and the 1999 deluxe and the kind of, the Sign of the Times. and then I understand there's a lot to sort out, and I understand there's lots of legal things, but it's been 6 years now. We were on a thing. I still, maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I still feel like I need to be reassured that Primary Wave and the family are on the same page. And do you know what? More than that, what I need most, I need to have a sense that they've got a plan. You know, I mean, I don't necessarily need to know every detail of the plan, but I just want to know they've got a plan. That they're saying, right, we're going to focus on this, or we're going to focus on that, or we're going to do this. I mean, so far with the Super Deluxes, they've tended to, obviously, which makes sense, they focused on the albums that sold the most. I mean, they've focused on Purple Rain, they focused on Sign of the Times, they focused on 1999. They focused on those albums, and there was a lot of talk about Diamonds and Pearls being next, the Love Symbol album, things like that. You know, it was supposed to be ready, the Diamonds and Pearls Deluxe, but then it got shelved. I mean, that was obviously a huge commercial hit. Lots of hits. Number one, obviously, in Cream, and hits in Get Off, and Money Don't Matter Tonight, and Diamonds and Pearls. And I think that's a really, interesting thing. But they've stalled at the moment, and at the moment, I feel like the only thing they are pushing is merchandise. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against merchandise. I think merchandise is great. I think brilliant. But it has to be, we've said this before, it has to be done carefully with attention to detail, and it has to be done in a way that's respectful and a way that is, of decent quality. Has to happen like that. But also, I think we need to focus on the music. The music is central. The music is central, and ultimately, whatever we do with the merchandise and stuff like that brings in money. The music is central. Now, Bootleggers, yeah, they put out music and they put out the kind of clothing and stuff like that, but their central business is the music. And if there's a gap in the market, if there's a demand for a product, the Bootleggers, and I'm not making any moral judgment, the Bootleggers will fill it. If the estate don't want that money, that's a bit of a strange thing for me, because ultimately that money could be going to the estate. If the estate had released this new thing, this new vinyl, which is of NPG tracks, the NPG audio tracks, the Chocolate Invasion. Now, if the estate had released that, and they could have done that, that would have taken minimal work just to press it. They've already got the recordings. They don't have to, the work is done. Prince created the work, it's there. They'd make money. And do you know what? There's one thing I will say as well. It's Christmas. It's coming up to the end of the year. This is when people buy gifts and things like that. And it's fine. They're pushing the merch. I mean, I keep getting messages. I don't know if you do. You get messages, you get text messages, you get emails. Buy this from the Prince estate. Buy these scarves. Buy these duvets. Buy these slippers. Please buy these things. And it's fine. And they push that. And like I say, I think we have to be careful about this. There's certain aspects like the symbols not matching and pricing, various things. But the music, there must have been some music they could release for the end of the year, some concert, some live show. Just release something, even if it's something we've had before, but actually out there and available in a way that it wasn't. That's really important. Vega, we love you, Vega. Vega, I miss you. I miss you, Vega. Amazing guy. Nice to see you live. For me, release everything as soon as possible, at least before I die. Bring the vault to the people. I couldn't put it better. And I mean, I don't mean to be strange, but that's a thing for me. Prince has so much work. They need to be releasing it at pace, because it's going to take decades to get it there. So I think, we need to start as soon as possible, and we made a start, and then we've stalled, and we need to get back on track. We really do. We were for a time, we were the envy, the Prince estate, of all the other estates. There were other estates that were kind of, a bit, they were kind of getting criticism, saying, why aren't you like the Prince estate? Look at the Prince estate. Look what they're putting out. They're putting out loads of stuff. The Prince estate is doing this and doing that. And I think that's something that, we were really the envy of the estates. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to be in a situation where we're one of those estates where people say, oh God, I feel bad for the Prince estate. they're not getting stuff, or the Prince fans, they're not getting stuff released. Now, I don't want it to be like that. I want us to be the envy of all the estates. I think it's really, really important. And this is a project that's going to take so long. We need to get everything out there that's already there. We need to get super deluxes out there, live stuff. For me, the live stuff is so important. It's so important. Prince is just such an amazing live performer. And I think, you can't get official documents, official DVDs or live shows for most of his tours. It's crazy when you think about it. We've got a bit of the Diamonds and Pearls on on the VHS, but we haven't got an official document for a whole Diamonds and Pearls concert. What about an Act 1 concert? What about 21 Nights? What about the Vegas shows? There's so many shows. You think, why aren't there official full-length concerts available for all of these tours? Because each tour Prince did was very different. I think you only have to look at the Purple Rain tour, you look at the Parade tour, you look at the Sign of the Times tour, in the space of a few years, how different that was, how different he was in the Parade tour to what he was both before and after that in Purple Rain and Sign of the Times tours. That's key. We need to capture all those moments. And 21 Nights was professionally filmed. We all saw it. The Third Eye Girl shows, the 2014, the Hit and Run shows, they were all professionally recorded. Prince recorded practically everything. So it's there. And get it to us. What good is it doing sitting where it is? Ultimately, the very fact that bootleggers are thriving and doing so well proves people want this product. They want the product. They want it. Now, the estate can either provide that or the bootleggers will provide that. And I'd rather, it goes to the estate in order to keep, Paisley Park going and various things. But to me, I could be wrong, but if I was in this situation where I was working at Primary Wave, or I was, one of the family, I know it's easier for us to sit here and say these things, but I would just want to make it a full-time job, a full, passionate, full-time job. I want to put everything into it because it's so important, this responsibility they have to do Prince proud. Prince deserves that. He gave us so much. He gave us more than we could possibly appreciate throughout his life, and he's left us a vault like no one. No one's got a vault like Prince. No one. And I think that's a key thing. If we owe it to Prince, and I just want to know they're working on it 100%. They're working on it day and night. They're sweating over the details, and they want to get it right, and they want to come up with the best things they can for Prince, and they're passionate about it, and they believe in it, and they want to do it, and they want to, make Prince's work and the things he's left us grow and grow and grow. And I just want them to, I want to hear from them. I want them to feel like they're as excited about the possibilities as we are. Edgar he's my hero. I love Edgar. Had Prince been alive, we would not have gotten anything for the vaults either. So we must be careful not to feel too entitled to get anything. Then again, indeed, the bootleggers keep the legacy alive. I think this is a really, really good point. It's a balance, because on one hand, as Prince fans, we're spoiled. And Prince spoiled us. He set us this kind of level. And I think that's true. We want everything. We want it now. We want every little outtake. We want every little thing. So on one hand, yes, Prince gave us so much during his lifetime, and also he left those recordings behind. I think the fact he stored them, and I've seen comments where he said, he eventually thinks it'll all come out anyway. And, I understand that. And I think you can't almost treat the Prince estate like any other estate, because the Prince estate isn't any other estate in a sense. Some artists die and they leave behind an album or 2 albums. They don't have that kind of material to work with. I mean, the Queen estate, for example, they haven't got a huge amount of unreleased material to bring out. But that said, also you said that a really good point that you said, the bootleggers keep the legacy alive, and that's the thing. When I first got into Prince, I was a teenager, and I went to a local record fair, and I didn't know hardly anything about Prince. I'd only been into Prince a few months, and they had a stack of CDs at this record fair, and I didn't know anything about Prince, so I assumed they were all official. I had no idea, and I bought one, a triple CD called the Jewel Box. Now, the Jewel Box is like a collection of various outtakes and things, and obviously it was a bootleg. Now, I didn't know that at the time, but those songs I heard, that was the first time I heard lots of songs, lots of outtakes. I heard The Flow, there's a different mix of The Flow with sort of Rosie Gaines more prominent, Schoolyard, Good Man, Cookie Jar, you name it. So much stuff. And that was amazing. To me, that was like a different world. That was a different world. I was like, not only has Prince created all this work, but he's this massive amount of other stuff out there that he just worked on during the time he recorded. He just put it into a vault. He just had so much stuff, and here's this other world. And to me, it was like going into your favorite store and you're surrounded by all your favorite things, and it's amazing. And then someone shows you this little door, and you go through and go, "What's that?" You go, "That is another whole store of stuff, different stuff you'll love that you didn't even know about." It's amazing. It really is just incredible. Funketeer saying we want it doesn't mean we're saying we're entitled to it, but I'm sure Prince would have wanted us to have it, and he's entitled to the estate getting on it. I think that's the thing. The estate owe Prince. I've always felt that. I would never say Prince owes us anything, because Prince gave us everything. He's the reason why we're here. But the estate owes Prince to do a good job. It's like I said, it's a case of, it's rather like if you were left, I've said this before, but it's rather like if you were left thousands of unreleased Van Goghs or Monet pictures or Picasso pictures, and you were left thousands and thousands of these pictures. You owe it to those artists to show those pictures to the world. You don't want to store them away. You don't want to. You want people to see them. You want them to be talked about. You want them to enhance this career they have. Edgar Cruz, the memoir could indeed have been a first step, and I think that's one of the things that hit me. I have to say, when I was reading Prince's memoir, for me, it cuts when it just cuts off, and it just stops because Prince wasn't there to write anymore, and that really got me, because you're getting into it. You're getting into the book, and you're trying to understand Prince's mind, and then it's just cut short. And that really reinforced to me that feeling that Prince had so much more to give, and that was cut short. And Prince, don't get me wrong, he worked phenomenally hard. He created more stuff, more quality stuff than any other artist I think would create in 10 lifetimes, more than that. But he still had so much more to give. And anybody who saw him in 2014 with the Third Eye Girl shows, even Piano Microphone shows, that he had so much more creativity left. And when that memoir cut short, it just felt like, because I remember at the time, I thought, when they announced it, I didn't believe it. I thought, there's no way Prince would do a memoir. No way. He's so mysterious, and so you don't know all about him. There's no way he'd do that. And when he did, it was amazing. And he had to do it in his own Prince way. He sort of did it in a kind of Dan Piper and Bringer. It's just a Prince way. He approached it in a very different way, sort of just getting this connection with someone he felt he could work with. And when it just stopped, when you're reading it, it stops. It's it cuts, and it's the book has got so many great things. I mean, so much insight into Prince's humor, and I think that's as a person, and I think I would love to have known, hear him talk about his career in the 80s, the 90s. Past that, I'd love to hear him talk about his whole career, and that sadly is something we didn't get. But the one thing I will say about that is Prince always said, if you want to find me, kind of look into my music. And I think that's a key thing. I think that all the passion, all the emotions of Prince are in his music. So if you really want to know Prince, put his music on, turn off the lights, put your headphones on and just listen to Prince, because every question would be there. SMS 130. We would have gotten more bootlegs if Prince was still here. Maybe not as much, but the bootlegs would have kept going one way or another. I've got to say, that's a really, really, really good point, because in the earlier days, in the 80s, lots of bootlegs of Prince got out. I mean, there was various stories about how they got out, people taking them, band members, arguably, some people said that he just left them in cars when they went to the wash, and people, there's all these stories. Some people thought Prince sneaked some out. It's, lots of different stories. But when it tightened up, there are certain periods when it tightened up and people didn't have that access, and we really stopped. Now, obviously, since the estate has happened, and Iron Mountain storing the stuff, obviously we don't get leaks in the same way, because obviously, there's nobody going in and out of the vault. It's carefully controlled by a company. It's not like Prince was often, I think he would let some people go into the vault and look around, and, things got out. And I think you're right. I think if Prince was here, we probably would have still got a lot more leaks. That changed. There were certain periods of time when there was lots of people going in and out the vaults, and there were certain periods of time when hardly anybody was going in the vaults, and it really tightened up. So to me, it's a catch-22, because you want to hear the stuff, don't you? Let's be honest, we want to hear the stuff, and I think we want to hear it. And obviously, it'd be very unlikely anything would leak from Iron Mountain or anything like that. It's going to be only official releases, and that's unless some collectors have got some stuff which has leaked a while ago and they haven't let it out yet, and they're just sitting on it and holding on to it, which is possible. But then if they're going to do that, obviously no leaks, then the estate need to get some stuff out. We really do. SMS, the vault would have continued to be loaded with more content. That was part of the process in creating the next album. You're right. I mean, Prince, for me, one of the most interesting things about Prince, I say one of the most interesting things, there's lots of interesting things, but one of the things I really liked I'd like to have known was how he felt an album, when was it ready? When he was putting it together and he's got all these tracks and he's thinking, should I just add this? Should I just add that? When was it ready? Like with the Symbol album, and at last minute cutting out those segues and putting I Want to Melt With You in. How does he know when it's ready? When's the moment you say, no, that's it? I'm not going to add to it. That's it. That's the album. I think that's really interesting, because he was always recording all these things. And I love, if you go on princevault.com, so you'll recommend everybody go on princevault.com. It's amazing. But when you see the different configurations of the albums, I love seeing that, how it progresses over time, how you see Emancipation, or you see the Exodus album, or you see albums develop over time and how they change, and how he reconfigures them, changes them, moves tracks about, keeps tracks in, remix it. I just love that evolution, that idea of when he first has that idea. And obviously we know famously that he made albums that never saw the light of day, that he just shifted and changed ideas. And I think that's a key part of Prince, trying to understand his creative process. I really do. I drink it. It's only Coca-Cola, I'm afraid. Actually, it's Dr. Pepper. I tell a lie. Dr. Pepper. Maybe if I'm lucky, I'll get a branded deal with Dr. Pepper and everything will be great. I think he put it there, the studio material at least, to be able to pull it out and work on it some more. Extra Lovable, for instance, was pulled out decades later and altered completely. Yes. I mean, that's interesting. I was watching a interview with Prince today, the Music and More interview he did. And he talked, and somebody asked him that question. He said, do you pull stuff out? It's that moment in the Prince in the interview with Music and More when Prince says, I'm just seeing if you fit the profile of a bootlegger. And it's just brilliant. But they ask him, do you pull out stuff? And he says, sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't, sometimes he works on it again. And Extra Lovable was a track I never thought I'd see Prince dig out, because obviously, it's a key kind of, what would you call it? A kind of, I say iconic. It's a cult hit, a real cult hit. And when he pulled it out, and obviously he changed it hugely, and he changed a lot of it, but he obviously couldn't resist that song. He couldn't resist that motif, that kind of, that tune. He couldn't resist it, and he pulled it out. And I love when Prince to do that. Those little nods. He would obviously also do that where he would put in little bits of previous songs in, like Illusion, Coma, Pimp and Circumstance and things like that. But I think that's the thing. Prince was never fully done with some songs. He sort of, they would, a lot of songs I would call orphan songs, where like If I Love You Tonight, it went from artist to artist, kind of moved about. Or when obviously when he brought back 1,000 Hugs and Kisses, and I think that's the thing. Sometimes there's a time for a song, and perhaps Prince felt it wasn't that time, and then it came back. And I think that's the thing. Prince would have continued to work on that, and it makes you wonder. It just makes you wonder how much more he could have created. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I always thought I'd see Prince in his 80s, just on a piano, like his father, almost on a piano playing. And I just think, I think that would be, that was what I always thought would happen. And I think that's one of the, one of the shocking things really about what happened. But I think it's really interesting. I think it's really interesting how he would use his work as a basis for inspiration, and take out work and kind of, think, this fits that project, this fits that. And obviously, famously, sometimes tracks just didn't work or didn't come along at the right time for an album. Like, you think of an amazing song like She's Always in My Hair, and it just didn't quite come along at the right moment or fit in the right project. But it's a remarkable song, and quite frankly, She's Always in My Hair would make someone's career. I think, personally, I think it would make someone's career, just that song, and for Prince it was just, another song he couldn't fit on. Funketeer, he was a constant work in progress. He was. That's one of the things I also like about Prince, is that he never he could have taken the easy route, and he didn't. He could have just rested on his laurels and say, right, I'm just going to do hit shows. And there's arguments, yes, he played lots of hits, but he constantly pushed his new material. For example, the Brits. I remember watching the Brits 2006, and he played Tiamo Corazon, Fury, and then obviously went on to Purple Rain, Let's Go Crazy. So it also this mix of old and new, bringing in the new. And 21 Nights, I remember so much for Black Sweat and Lolita. And I think that's a really important point. He kept challenging himself, and he used to say that thing about, my only competition is me in the past. But it must be hard in that situation, because he must have achieved almost everything you think an artist could achieve, but he kept pushing himself. And I always think you've got to be quite strong to do that, because only he could push himself. There's no one else. I don't think he was. I think he liked competition, and I think he liked to prove he could be the best. And I think, there was some it was media made, but some competition with other artists and various things. Obviously, they talk about Michael Jackson and things like that. But I always think of him kind of pushing himself to show some of his heroes he grew up with, George Clinton and Larry Graham and Shaka Khan. But I just think he just pushed himself, and he is a strong individual to do that, to keep pushing himself when no one else was, because no one would blame him if he just. We couldn't blame Prince if he got to like 40 and he said, I'm going to go and live on a yacht and just. But he couldn't, because this is what he did. He said it was a blessing and a curse. He, this is what he did. He wanted to be the best, and I think that's a key aspect of Prince. And I think that really is. Funketeer, he certainly liked competition. I think when Prince has got a point to prove as well, when he's got a point to prove, like with the P-Funk song, but also when he's got a point to prove to some other artist, or he really excels. It's like he kind of, that drives him to do things. And I think sometimes they always say it's they always say that kind of great heroes need great kind of opposing forces. You like this is a bad example, but like Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty, or Batman and the Joker. You need somebody to kind of almost push you, not in a kind of negative sense, but just to inspire you, push you to that next level. And I think he grew up with that competition. Obviously, he talked about it with the Time, who said that they were the only band he was genuinely scared of, and they were like Godzilla. And I think that pushed him to be even better. I really do. I really do. Vega, what do we think about the sound quality of the Vault? Is that the reason for the slow releases? That's a really interesting question. I think that's an Edgar question, but I think that there is talk about, there was obviously a bit of a concern because a lot of the tapes had issues potentially. They sort of had to be, carefully looked after, and it's obviously you're basically being you're a bit like, it's like working in the museum in a sense, because some of these tapes are quite old and you've got to be very careful. You've got to not damage them, and I think that's really, really important. Iron Mountain at the moment is supposed to be, the best there is. This for me is a really difficult point, because ultimately, if you say to me, if there's stuff that isn't of great quality, like video or various things, like for example, there's a video for P Control, and I've only seen it in pretty bad quality. But if you said to me, do I want to see it? Then I do, but it's unlikely you're going to get people to pay a lot of money for that. So what do you do? Now, to me, this is exactly when you need to utilize the website. It really is, because if you just use the website and you say, we're going to put some stuff out here, we're not going to charge, or we're going to charge a couple of pounds or whatever. You can download it. This isn't high quality. This is stuff that Prince worked on. It's interesting for the hardcore fans. Then I think there's a way of doing that. There's a way of doing that. You don't necessarily want to damage or hurt in any way Prince's work or legacy, but sometimes putting out the things that he was working on, you restore them obviously to the best ability you can, and various things like that. But would I rather have them? Yes, I would. But like you say, if you're doing a super deluxe or something like that, you need really the best quality. And I'm sure they've got the best people who could possibly restore it that there are. But there is a concern at the back of my mind, thinking, is there a lot of stuff? Was a lot of stuff damaged? There was talk about floods at some point, and was there certain things that were damaged? So I think that's really, really interesting, and I really hope that it's mostly all great and fine and there's no problem. But I think that's a difficult thing. Look at the When My Guitar Gently Weeps performance. He had it all planned to make everybody see it. I'm the best, F the rest. Sorry for my French. No offense. I love that, because obviously in the I think in the rehearsal they said that Prince played it pretty much. He played it as you would normally play it. I say as you normally play it, but he didn't do what he did in the live bit. And then when the live show happened, he just kicked out of the park. And I think you're right. I think surrounded by so many great people, this is an opportunity for him to just kill it. And I think Barney Hoskins, the writer, said that about Prince, said that there's a smile when he leaves the stage sometimes, like, yeah, I killed him again. That was amazing. And I think for us, this is what we've been saying all the time. We Prince fans were like, yes, this is what Prince does. This is what Prince does all the time. Watch the concert. This is what Prince does. And everybody else was like, I heard people say, I didn't know he played guitar. Or people say, oh, I thought he just sort of held the guitar, which is bizarre. There are people, who believe that. There are people who watched Purple Rain and still don't know that he, played guitar. But there were people who said, oh, I knew he played, but I didn't know he played like that. And I was like, we were like, yes, this is what we've been saying. This is what we've been talking about. This is what we've been saying all this time. How amazing Prince was at that. I mean, that's the thing. And when the world saw that, I have felt two things. I felt fantastic, brilliant. The world is talking about Prince and they realize what we see. But B, just the amount of people who didn't know. They didn't know. They had no idea that Prince could play like that. Amongst so many great guitarists, he just stole the show. It was ridiculous. It was just, I can't stop talking about it. Edgar, some of the tapes, the video stuff had water damage. That part of the vault was not kept in top-notch condition. I think that's the thing. I mean, obviously now, as far as we know, there was talk of bringing back to Paisley Park, but I think, as far as we know, it's staying at Iron Mountain. But just to be sure, I'm not sure 100%. But the video stuff, that's a shame, because that's some of the things I'd love to see. I think Kevin Smith has talked about it, and other people have talked about it, that he recorded videos for songs when he would get, basically, he would get like a whole, loads of dancers. He would get loads of dancers. He'd get a full production, which you would do for a video, which is not uncommon. But then he wouldn't release it. Now, there's no other artist that would have a full production go. We're going to have clothes, we're going to have wardrobe, we're going to have dancers, we're going to have background, we're going to have this whole thing, and then not even put it out there. Because every other artist would come in, they would record, they would do the video, it would get released. That's it. But Prince would put all that effort and creativity into the visuals and then not even release it. Now, to me, that would have been a really interesting. So I just hope they can salvage what, as much as they can. It's certainly, a shame. And Funketeer points out that he even forgot the password for the first vault. I mean, he sort of extended, he spilled out of the vault. And it's a shame that sometimes there wasn't somebody who just kind of would, archive that and look after it better. But I think Prince was just creating so much that it just was inevitable, and he wanted to keep it all in house, and I totally understand that. But I just hope that I really hope that the video stuff is good, because that's the thing I'm really looking forward to, quite frankly, a lot of it as well. Edgar Crease to Funketeer, he did that often on television as a reminder of his greatness. The Brits 2006 is a good example. Super Bowl as well. He knew when the world was watching and upped his game. Do you know what? It's true, because when it first announced that Prince was doing the Super Bowl, I thought, fantastic, brilliant, it's Prince. But part of me thought, God, that's an enormous amount of pressure, and I thought, God, that's a huge amount of pressure. But Prince thrived on that. I mean, the Super Bowl was the biggest, music show in the world, really. I mean, hundreds of millions of people watch it. It's crazy. And the pressure he was under, and I thought, that's a lot of pressure to put yourself under. Not that I didn't think Prince would be phenomenal. Of course he would. Absolutely. But I thought, God, because it's one of those shows that's scrutinized and watched, and everybody, has lots of other great shows to compare it to. And the fact that Prince came in there and just destroyed it was brilliant. The rain just seemed perfect. I mean, you couldn't plan that, but it's just perfect. The concert, the Purple Rain was just amazing. The guitar wailing, the sheet, it's just, I think he thrived on that pressure, and he challenged himself to do that. And obviously we had this run, didn't we, from musicology, where it really became, he gave those huge concerts, and he really, I hate using the word comeback, because he never went anywhere. And they also used to talk about Prince having a comeback every year. It was ridiculous. But they would push it and push it and push it. And he would have these huge concert tours in 2004 in musicology. And then he really upped it, and pushed it again with the Vegas shows in 2006. In 2006, the Brits, and, like I said, the whole Super Bowl era, Prince just put himself out there and just challenged himself. So amazing. Hey, Serena. Oh. Hello, I've just seen you online. Great to see you. I hope you're well. I have a couple of my grandchildren over, so I don't know how long I can stay on. What's the conversation about? Well, it's kind of a bit about, what can the Prince estate learn from what the Bootleggers provide, in terms of releasing more stuff, but also just about what we want the estate to do and to release, in a sense of, if they don't put these things out there, the Bootleggers are just doing it anyway, and they're fulfilling that demand. They're putting out the Chocolate Invasion, they're putting out small club. They're putting out lots of things, and I think, especially at Christmas, because I want a live concert for Christmas. I want my Christmas present. I want a live concert or something. I want. There's such a time to do that. And do you know what? Even now at this really late stage, I still think they could, put a concert out on a website, even if they don't charge, or you can do those things where you put it out on a thing, and sort of on a website, and you can do those things. And Yellow does them, where you sort of pay what you can, because obviously people have got different financial things. But sometimes they put a concert out and they say, look, pay what you can, pay $1, pay $5, whatever, and it will show you an unreleased concert. And do you know what? Please, just when there's something at Paisley Park, offer people the chance who can't get to it, a kind of way to see it, like a live stream or even a recording of it afterwards that they can pay for. I mean, that would just be amazing. Oh, Serena, I love you, my purple brother. Missing, I miss you too, Serena. That's really good to see you. Bless you. I hope you have an amazing Christmas too. I hope you have I can't believe how close it is, but it's that time already. Oh, Eldebara. I don't think music fans these days appreciate virtuosity as much. Sadly, thanks to TV talent shows, it's all about what voice you have. So that's a really interesting point. I keep knocking my mic. That's a really interesting point. Because I always thought, I don't know if there is. I mean, I don't know, but you don't see the instruments on it. You don't see someone coming on there and do a guitar solo and a kind of, you're right. It's been brought down to the voice and nothing else. And even the song almost doesn't matter. It's how good a singer that is. And then we'll take this person and we'll kind of make him into a product and we'll get them out there. And you don't get the people creating the whole thing, because obviously lots of people, I'm not saying some people do, but lots of people on the show will not. It's not their own song or anything. They're just singing someone else's song and various things. But having this whole package, and fair play, I've got to say to Warner Brothers at the time, they took a risk on Prince at a young age. I mean, he was a phenomenal talent. We knew that, but they took a risk and they stayed with him, and they got the 3-album deal, and they developed him. They accepted the fact that after the Prince, the second album, the Prince album, he then went, to Dirty Mind, which is a hell of a risk to take. I mean, if you're a record company, here's this thing that's rough and demo-like, and there's lots of songs you can't play on the radio. You can't play Sister. You can't play, her Head. I mean, here's all these tracks, and this was his third album. This is part of the 3-album deal, and suddenly you're saying, here's this thing you can't really promote too much. You can't really play about with too much, because it's gonna be almost banned everywhere. You can't talk about incest. You can't talk about Head. You can't talk about laying people down in a car. It's all it's pretty terrible. But I think it's just it's true. I think you're right. I think there are very few artists that can now go through that development that Prince had. And I will say that part of that, credit to Warner Brothers at the time, but also part of that is now the industry. If you don't have instant success, it's like, forget it. I think this sounds a bit weird, but I think in some ways it's the best time to be an artist and the worst time to be an artist. I think it's the best time in the sense if you can get your work out there easier. You can go through Bandcamp, you can go through, put it on YouTube or Spotify or whatever, but it's harder than ever to develop that career, to keep pushing that career, because everybody's jostling and we don't build these careers. And also Prince learned stagecraft. He learned stagecraft. He learned the way to develop his live shows, and that takes time, that takes performance, that takes application, that takes a huge amount of rehearsal, a massive amount of rehearsal and talent to do that. But that is a key thing. We don't always give artists that time anymore. VC Vault Curator, oh bless you. Oh, you shouldn't, seriously. You're such a I could hug you. Thank you so much for VC. Oh, you're a bad man. Thank you. So you're making me go red now. Don't make me go red. Thank you. And I got to say thank you to VC for honestly. Yeah, I'm really lucky, and I've got some amazing friends. I really have the best support group in the world. You make me blub, don't? Oh, bootlegs are the gift and curse regarding artist industry. I appreciate them, yet I don't like the rehashing of bootlegs. There isn't much different with that and an official reissue. It's interesting you say it because some of these bootlegs you get, and they've been out loads of times before. I mean, how many times has Small Club come out? How many times have certain bootlegs come out? And you're right. And sometimes you think, is it just a kind of cheap way to make money? And, you know, it's not really new stuff. And particularly the point mentioned before about how there's less leaks now. So it's not like you could get a bootleg and there's been loads of new songs on it you haven't heard. It's probably going to be songs you've heard before, maybe slightly better quality, but genuinely speaking, it's going to be songs you've heard before. So I think that's you know, that is true. I think it's interesting what you say about, you know, the legacy. I mean, that's an interesting point, bootlegs, because, you know, it's something people don't talk about as much. I mean, certainly, you know, obviously, in articles, you know, for artists who are alive, they review the album they've officially released, but we don't really talk about bootlegs, and that's to me, it's like, you know, like Leonardo da Vinci had all these sketches, and that really helps us to understand his mind and how he worked. And I think, you know, for me, some of these outtakes are developed sketches or even full tracks and ideas, and I think that really helps to understand him as an artist and where he came from. We don't just see the finished, polished product. We see, you know, the way his mind works, the way he changes things. When you first hear Alphabet Street, which was originally like a kind of blues refrain, a kind of really different, slowed down blues refrain to what it ended up being, and you see the choices he made. And that's the thing for me that Prince had, possibly more than anyone else I've known, is that he had the ability to make the best decisions for his music, to get the most out of an idea. He could take an idea and he could maximize it. And he's done that not just for him, but for other artists too. And he'll play the right guitar solo, he'll add the right thing. And it won't always be the flashiest guitar solo. It won't always be the wailing guitar. It'll be the one that's best suited to that track, and Prince will get the best out of that track. He is kind of a servant of the song, if you like. He said, I think he said before, he's like a midwife. He delivers, you know, they deliver the song, and I think that's the thing. I think that's the key thing. Serena, I love his lives. I think he's the best at him. I know I'm biased, but really, if anyone has gone to a concert or watched his lives, how could anyone disagree? It's true. There's an electricity in Prince's live shows that, quite frankly, just it hits you. It's hard to explain. Actually, it's like a dopamine. I don't know what it is. Like a kind of a nervous electricity. You know, anything could happen, and you never knew Prince could turn on a dime and stop the band and do something different and play this and do that. And I just think, you know, I think that's one of the things I want the most, is for concerts to come out, for people to see Prince at the O2, for people to see Prince nude tour, to people to see Act One, Love for One Another tour, you name it. Get the live shows out there, because once they see Prince live, the concert, even though, you know, now it's on audio, DVD or Blu-ray, whatever, but even that, seeing that, I think they'll just be, you know, won over. Edgar's best bootleg, Small Club. I don't think anyone will disagree with that. The Dawn, yes. Montreux 2009. That was interesting, Montreux 2009, yes. I think that's the thing about Prince, is that for me, that was one of the shows when he most almost changed, you know, his set list for the Montreux Jazz Festival. And he kind of really thought about that. And you have certain tracks there when the lights go down and various. He just really thought. And when I lay my hands on you, he thought about it. He really thought, I'm going to do something that jazz club vibe. It fits. It really changed the set list. It was like a different side of Prince, and a side of Prince that other people hadn't seen for a while. And I think that's a thing, or other people who perhaps hadn't seen it all. And I think that was a really interesting way. He really felt something different then. He did something different. And yeah. And not the best, but my personal favorite, San Francisco, 1986. I've got to say, Parade doesn't get talked about enough in terms of bootlegs. Actually, thinking about it, that's a very good shout. Very good shout indeed. Oh, let's see who else we got. No, I totally agree with VC here. His outtakes are the roadmap from one album to the next. I could not agree with that more. I think Prince, there's always that thing, isn't there, where I think Steve Fagnoli, Prince's manager, at one time said that Prince would work on an album, and then by the time that come out, he'd done another album, and then by the time they're touring the first album, he'd done a third album. And I think that's the thing. Prince was constantly working, and he had this massive amount of tracks. He would pull some out for one project, but then he'd be working on these other tracks, and that would go into another project, and it would all kind of, you never knew which of the 6 things. He said that before, Prince, that he would take on 5 or 6 things and only finish one, almost in the sense of, it swirled about and then it just came together. And I think that's the thing. I love those tracks which are in between. They're not strictly one album or strictly another, but they are that bridging, that kind of idea of him. And sometimes they're not even songs that get included anywhere. They're just songs where he's working out, where am I going to go? For example, at the end of the Sign of the Times tour, when he just started wearing a bit of polka dot, and you think, okay, what's going on here? And just sort of these little ideas. And he did that with music, where he would just have these little differences and these little sort of ideas for new tracks. And I think that worked. That worked. And you're right, it's the whole story, because these albums don't come out of a bubble. They don't just appear like that. Prince is obviously, working on them, creating different ideas. So I think that's the thing. He does not they don't just come out fully formed. You've got to see the work behind them. And I think seeing the work behind him, only makes you appreciate Prince more. I think that's a really good thing to do, because I think that really makes you appreciate his full ability as an artist. And I think, rather than just keeping it all behind, just seeing that development and that constant creativity, I think makes us appreciate Prince as, a Mozart of our time, an absolute genius, in a way that few people are ever going to be. I think no one will be. And I think that's really, really important. So yeah, I totally agree. Funketeer. More Dr. Pepper, sorry. Talking about the changes, again, Barry comes to mind, he made. It's so interesting how he played live in Europe as opposed to the US of A, connecting to a different kind of listening to music. I think it's really interesting, because he would change sometimes the way he did certain songs. I remember in Japan, he would cut short a lot of the lovesexy kind of speeches, but more generally, I think you make a really good point, like in terms of, we've just mentioned Montreux, was the way he played that. I think Europe loved him, and obviously America loved him. And I think it's interesting in Europe, sometimes perhaps he did feel, I don't know, he could try some different things. And I think you're right. I think there's some things he tried, perhaps, in Europe, and he felt very happy to try them, whether it's 21 Nights, whether it's the Third Eye Girl kind of minimalist tours, but particularly Montreux as well. I just feel I think it's interesting how his career, as he went on, he actually, spent more time, and he performed more in Europe, particularly, obviously, UK, Holland, Germany. And I just think it's interesting how, like you say, that is an interesting thing. It'd be quite interesting to see how over his career, that shift changed from America to Europe, and whether it's part of the different styles Europe has, or the kind of it's very open to a lot of different. I don't know. I think it's really interesting. I think it's one of those things that someone needs to write an essay about. So tell Edgar to write an essay about it. Come work. Oh dear. Serena, Empty Room was so good. It's one of those tracks that I don't know, if it hits you at that moment, it just can have you in tears. It really, there's something about it. I think it's again, it's so Prince though, isn't it? It's so Prince that a song that powerful is a song that most casual fans have never heard of. How many casual fans are going to know about Empty Room or have a copy of C-Note? Or it's one of those tracks that completely emotionally can just devastate you, and yet that's just another one of those tracks that Prince created that doesn't get talked about enough. And I think it's a fan favorite, but I think outside of the Prince community, that's a track that it's one of my tracks that I just if you're walking home in the rain and Empty Room comes on, then it can be quite emotional. It's quite handy though, because if it's raining and you're crying, no one notices. So that's obviously quite good. Paul, welcome, Paul. Yesterday I came across an 82 rehearsal where the Revolution was working on I Would Die For You. The 2 guitar solos on it make me hope there is a recorded version in the vault. Free the music. I think Free the Music is something, I feel like this is like the Gold Experience all over again. Free the music, free the Gold Experience. I think it's ironic that we are having that situation again. We want to just free the music. I think for me, I know you say I've got to make money. I understand that, and I've got to keep Paisley Park, and I understand that. But the way to do that is to get the music out there. Let us buy it. And do you know what? It's not just about money. It's about history. It's about making sure that Prince's role, his stunningly important role in music, is not only fully appreciated but cemented in a way that people talk about for generations to come. And I think that's really important. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of work, and you know what? Maybe I'm being, what's the word, overly optimistic and unfair to assume the estate can do that by themselves. Maybe it needs other people. It needs lots of other people, and I think that's true. I think it needs lots of people who work with Prince. It needs lots of inclusion of Prince's work in various things. But I think it also just needs, more importantly than anything, all of us. I think it needs all of us just to talk about Prince, to talk about all the different aspects, to write an article about something that Prince did that inspires you, or some aspect of Prince that perhaps we don't talk about enough, or just talk about Prince. You know what? Share a video, put a track out there, just a picture, anything. I think just we are the continued conversation of Prince, and we keep his memory alive by sharing that music that transformed the life, and he's still here with us through that. And I think that's so important. So just it's probably down to us. I mean, ultimately, I guess. Star Reviewerholic. Prince in streaming and in general, the vault, live stuff. It's all there. There's so much potential. Do you know that's what I think I started this conversation by saying that drives me mad, in the sense of there's so much the estate could be making right now. There's so much they could be doing right now. And I think that's the thing. I think there's so much potential, and every single dollar a bootlegger makes proves the demand is there, and it proves that people want Prince's music, and it proves that people are willing to pay for Prince's music. And that is, if from a business perspective, from no other perspective, but from a business perspective, that's a loss. When you have a product that you have ownership of, and you're letting other people make money from it, but you're not doing it, which just seems crazy to me from a business perspective. I mean, let alone from a moral perspective in terms of getting his work out there. But that's I think the money they could make, and you should never. This sounds mad. I know they've done duvets this week and slippers and various things, but you should never, ever, ever have a Christmas, November, Black Friday, whatever kind of. You should never have a time of year like that when you don't have some big release or something you can get people to buy for Christmas for people. Some live DVD, some new super deluxe, some collection of something, so a gift, something. I mean, of music. Yes, there's merchandise, stuff like that, but an actual music gift. There's no excuse with the amount Prince made and created for there not to be something every year for you to go, I'm going to buy this for myself or for other people and to get Prince's talked about. Then people, it's an ideal time as well because people are at home and they can just enjoy his music. I'm worried about his streaming numbers. I don't know what to think. He was close to 11 million only 3 months ago, and now he's in danger of slipping below 9 million. The estate has all the tools they need. I didn't know that. I didn't know it's gone down. That's slightly worrying. I will say, first of all, Prince obviously had certain issues with streaming sites about paying artists, correctly, paying them a decent amount, and that's something that loads of other artists now have gone on to talk about. They've gone on to accept that he was right about that he was definitely talking about that in the right way, and that people should get paid more for art, for artists. I think everyone agrees on that. I think that's something that loads of other artists, I think Taylor Swift and various other artists have talked about how, Spotify needed to pay more. But he kept his music off there because of that. And I think that's important because he did, well, without going into it too much, the whole kind of slave era was something that he did a lot of cost to himself, both financially and also I think it took a toll on him, but it was the right thing to do. But now you are right. There's no reason. Oh, just quick goodbye to Serena. Serena, bless your heart. Oh, bless your heart. You really shouldn't have done. Oh, bless you. Thank you so much, Serena. I hope you have an amazing Christmas, and I hope you have an amazing Christmas, Serena. Thank you. Oh, bless you. Bless you. Oh, you lot. But with streaming, the estate have got no reason not to get those figures up. When you see other artists of that kind of era, in terms of obviously Michael Jackson, Madonna, whoever, Prince's figures, like I say, are nowhere near as high as they need to be. But the thing is, that's because Prince kept his music off for a while and then started from behind. But you know what? That's easy to fix, I think. Get Prince's music in a few movies. Get Prince's music, in a few projects where people can kind of like explore his Spotify list and listen to the music that way. I mean, it's frustrating because they should be way higher, way higher, and I think that's concerning. We've got to think about how does the new power generation come through? How do people find that? And I think one of the ways people are doing that actually now is through I see a lot of these reacts to videos, where people listen to the track and then they kind of talk about what they feel. And sometimes this is people hearing Little Red Corvette for the first time or hearing When Doves Cry. And I think that's interesting. And that seems to be a way people get into that. And there's also some Prince kind of stuff on TikTok and stuff like that. But I just think you're right. The streaming numbers, they should be 10 times that at least. His legacy is so much more than any other artist. In 50 years, he could still be discovered. A song like Get Off could have been a hit today. Get a new remix of it, get a younger audience to connect. Do you know what, you're right? Because I was in a shop a few years ago and I heard bye Serena. You're so sweetheart. I heard a song I don't even know who it was by. It's terrible. It was but they included a sample of Nasty Girl, obviously, and the kind of Vanity Six track, and it was a contemporary kind of track. It was cool, and I thought this is amazing. And I think you're right. Get Off. I think a lot of Prince's work actually sounds very crisp and clear, and works really well. And I think you're right. Get Off could easily be a hit now. And I think a remix of it, get people out there, get the audience to connect. Absolutely, I totally agree. I totally agree. I think that's I think that's absolutely true. I hope the estate continue the super deluxe edition of releases. Those are needed, and those are done so well. They were, and I think they were getting better at them. I think the more you do something, the more you learn about it. I think personally, the 1999 deluxe was incredible. Just incredible. I think it was the Sign of Times deluxe. I think obviously the Purple Rain. I mean, there's an argument we could get another more expensive, even Purple Rain. But I think you're right. They were, and I hope it makes me wonder because obviously there's talk about Diamonds and Pearls is ready, but is it coming out? There's a change, obviously in who owns the estate. So I don't know. I mean, I hope they do because I think they're not every release obviously has to be a super deluxe, but you can at least have one super deluxe a year and then smaller projects. We don't want to bankrupt the Prince people, but one super deluxe a year, and you could have other projects too. There are people going to buy the £250 set, but also perhaps do lots of different price points. So if people can only afford $15, $20, they can have a stripped down version. So they can have different prices depending, on what they can afford. And I think that's an important thing. I think the thing, I mean, in a way, it's going to be interesting to see because obviously Sharon Nelson, I think, is in the nicest possible way. You shouldn't talk about a lady's age, but I think she's in her 80s, I think, and that's what is the plan for the estate. I mean, will it just? I don't mean to be thinking of it. Will it just revert at some point to primary wave completely? I don't know, but I think a plan is essential. We need someone who's in charge of it and over it and saying, right, we've got a plan, which is what we're going to do. And the music has to be central, no matter what else they do. And it's fine, whatever they do, but the music has to be central and getting that out there in songs and stuff like that. See, this is, I have 3 kids, Vegas says. They only know about Prince because of me, but suddenly they sing Kate Bush songs and you know why. To keep them alive, it needs to be alive for the kids. So you're right. And I think that's the thing. Strange, obviously, Stranger Things, and you're right. It needs to be where, it's the wrong word to use, but the zeitgeist is. It needs to be where the people are, and you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I think it does. It needs to connect to where people are. If people are on TikTok, if they're on Netflix, if they're on whatever, do that and get that. It's such an easy win for the estate, though, isn't it? Easy to go up to a big movie and say, look, if they want to use a Prince song, I mean, as long as it's done respectfully, use a Prince song. If they can use a Prince song, it gets out there, it gets Prince's work out there. People go, oh, that's great, and then they can get into that. And I think that's the thing. The fact that so much interest, I saw that Kate Bush that song exploded. And I think, just Run Up That Hill is just, I think it's just, that proves the power of Netflix. And I think it proves the power of capturing that lightning in a moment. And I think, it's really important for even a song that's been out for so long. I think that's the really important thing. So yes, you're right. We need a plan the estate have got to satisfy the kind of hardcore fans and the more casual fans, but they've also got to think generationally. What might be appealing to someone in their 50s might not be as appealing to someone who's 15. And how are we going to get the new fans? Now, I was lucky. Like I said, I got introduced to Prince by someone, and they sort of brought me in and welcomed me in, and that made a huge difference. But that's not not everyone's going to have that. We have to pass that on, and that's fine if it's your kids. But how do other kids, find it? I mean, you see a lot of Purple Rain t-shirts about sometimes with young people, and you think, I don't know whether know huge amounts about Prince or it's just something that they wear. But I think it's really, really interesting. And you're right, we need to think about the next generation because that they will drive that, and they'll be the innovators, and they'll keep doing that. And that'll be brilliant. Good evening from Mr. Hans. Good evening, everyone. Sorry I'm late to the show. Been a long, busy day. So this is what you're doing on your day off. I genuinely gave you, Jay, moonlighting. That's right. Mr. Ants is my boss. I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry. He's had a very hard day, Mr. Ants. You have to be nice to him. He's had to put up lots of Christmas decorations, and it's been very exhausting for him. We definitely need the Purple Rain SDE in 2024 and be done with that era. And you know what? Yes. I think there's two things here. First of all, when they do a super deluxe, they need to do it so we don't have to go back to it. They need to do it so fully and so completely. I know you can't get everything perfect, but so completely and so well that it's done, and you don't have to go back to it, and everybody's as happy as they can be with that. So first of all, you have to do it right first time, but second of all, you're right, we need to be done with that era for the moment. I think it's inevitable, but it's to me it's dangerous to kind of put everything in the Purple Rain basket, and I think that's the thing. We can't put everything in the Purple Rain basket, because otherwise we're doing Prince a disservice, and and there's so much more to explore. And I think you're absolutely right. I agree. I think you're right. I know people will disagree, but a biopic, I believe, is key. It is a guaranteed boost to any artist. I mean, look at the new Elvis movie. His whole image in every online news site, Elvis stories, it's huge. And I think the same thing obviously happened with Bohemian Rhapsody, with Queen. It's always difficult because to truncate, someone's life into 2 hours, you can't do it with anybody, because people's lives are more complicated and nuanced than that. So you can only do a bit. But if you do it in the right way, and you do it, there are ways into a story that you don't have to necessarily tell someone's whole life story. You can either focus on key events, or you can just focus on a certain time period. You don't have to necessarily tell their whole career. You could just focus on maybe a specific sort of event. I mean, you could do that, but I think you're never going to capture everything. But you know what? You're right. It will be a jumping off board for people to explore Prince. And the amount of people I know who went to see Bohemian Rhapsody, who they weren't Queen fans per se. They were kind of casual Queen fans, but they weren't like hardcore Queen fans. But afterwards, they dug out the Queen album, or they bought a Queen album, or they watched a Queen performance. And just by watching that, and it's true with Elvis, I know a lot of people on my timeline who have really, they are aware of Elvis, but now they've fallen in love with him, and sometimes back in love with it. And I think that's really testament. And some people have watched Elvis. There's a few people I know on my Twitter timeline who watch the Elvis movie over and over and over again, and they love it. And I think that's the thing. We also forget, of course, that's what Purple Rain did for Prince. Purple Rain had a large amount of, semi-autobiographical parts, and it could make a big difference. Edgar says, I fear a biopic is just too difficult to pull off. Basically, his life was 90% performing or recording. I think that's the thing. What do you focus on? Do you focus, in a sense, how he spent most of his time might not be the best way to do a movie, because, like I say, he was been in the studio and recording, and we don't want it to be, one of those kind of, one of those TMZ kind of things where all they do is focus on, um, um, you know, um, relationships, and all they focus on is the kind of salacious details. But obviously, Prince. It depends how you do it. I mean, obviously, Prince was married twice. He suffered some tragedies in his life. He was incredibly driven. His childhood was, I mean, how do you describe it? It wasn't the easiest childhood. I'm sure everybody would agree. So I think, it's difficult to how do you explore that. And I think that's the thing. I think his childhood would be very interesting, in a sense. I think some of the challenges he went through, but then you don't want to interfere with, you're talking about events, Worsley, Manuela and Maite and things like that. You kind of, it's difficult. And like, you know what, VC's hit it on the head again. I mean, Purple Rain is possibly as close as we get. Obviously, it's he added some bits, which you do in any drama, and he, is directed, and he created it, so you're not getting an honest narrator, in a sense, because you kind of, you're getting what Prince wants you to see and different aspects. But I think in art, there's a lot of truth. And I think that's the thing. I think there's a lot of truth in that Purple Rain thing. I think there's a lot of truth about how he felt. I think, about his parents, there's a lot of truth in that, relationships, and perhaps there's more truth in that than we thought. But I mean, even in Purple Rain, his whole, despite all the stuff going on in Purple Rain, his whole driving force is to make it big, to escape the world, but to kind of just it's almost like he's proving himself. He's proving what he can do, and he's being attacked by all sides. Billy, Morris, relationships, and I mean, it's ultimately it is a kind of quasi biographical, movie. Mark Antony. I will say he looks like Prince sometimes. So I mean, there's that. But you're right. It's that's the other problem. I mean, who would you get to play Prince? I mean, obviously Bohemian Rhapsody, they had Rami Malek, and it worked. And the concert scenes were very, very well done. They look really great. But I don't know who could pull off being Prince. I mean, who could reenact being Prince on in a concert? Who could do that? I don't know if anybody could do that. That's a really difficult thing. I don't know. I mean, you could do it from the point of view of someone else, but even then you'd have to include someone pretending to be Prince, and I don't know. I mean, you'd have to ask. I suppose you'd have to ask how Queen fans felt about Rami Malek, or how Elvis fans feel about it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how I would feel. Wouldn't it be cool if Purple Rain got another run in cinemas, if ever, the Super Deluxe? Do you know what? This is the thing I would love to see, and I haven't. I would love to see Sign of the Times in a cinema. I would love to see Purple Rain in a cinema. Obviously, I missed it. I was too young at the time. But to see it in a cinema, I think would be fantastic. I'd love to see it in a cinema. I'd love to see Sign of the Times in a cinema. I'd love to. I would absolutely love it. Do you know, I wish some kind of rich Prince fan just hired out a cinema, or we made an event where we all went to the cinema, and you could hire it out, and you say, play this, play this, play Purple Rain, play Sign of the Times, play a concert. I would love to see that, because I know at the obviously at Paisley Park they show live concerts, and I think that'd be brilliant. I'd love to see Purple Rain on a big screen. I think it would be. I mean, lots of theaters, where I live, sometimes they do kind of retro films, and I think I can't wait for Purple Rain. I'd love to. There's too much there. There is so much there. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Start up. Yes. I think there is so much there. Mentioning this, early life was hard. His mother, his epilepsy, early career, challenges, then Purple Rain, all the eras. I think that's the thing. I think, and the slave era. You know, I mean, I always think of the slave era, what Prince went through, and I always thought you could see it physically took a toll on him for a while. He was going through a lot of stuff, and I think that's yeah. I think there is. I mean, you know, there is a lot. Ultimately, you've got to look at it as he was, you know, a poor, you know, relatively poor kid. So historically, in terms of, you know, he had lots of issues growing up, broken homes, shunt from place to place, and the odds of him becoming who he was crazy. And that journey for him, from his perspective, imagine being a kid and you feel like, you know, your dad kicks you out, you feel like no one wants you, you get shoved from place to place, and then at a certain point in your career, you're looking out onto tens of thousands, maybe 100,000 people at massive concert, or 50,000 people who see you as this icon and look up to you and think you're this amazing rock star, this otherworldly figure. To go from that feeling of rejection and abandonment to that feeling of, I mean, you could talk about how real and loving sometimes fame is, but to go to that feeling of adoration, it must feel absolutely extraordinary. That indeed is the problem. Who can channel the live experience? Well, this is the thing. I mean, what do you do? Because I mean, if you get someone who's already famous, it's hard not to see them as that famous artist. You know, if you've got someone who's already a musical artist, but if you've got someone who wasn't a musical artist, who was an actor, so there are people like Mark Anthony who look like Prince, but there's no one who can perform like Prince. I suppose you could get someone to learn, like they did with Freddie and Bohemian Rhapsody, to get them to learn every nuance of a performance and to get them to mimic it. I mean, it wouldn't be Prince, but it would be, I suppose, as close as you can get. But the whole thing relies on having someone like Prince, and I cannot think of anyone who could do it. I really can't. Sorry if I'm rambling on tonight. I just you know, I get to spend time with you guys, and it's quite nice. Oh, Edgar did one of those events, the screening in the Netherlands. We were planning on doing Under the Cherry Moon, but then Corona came. We've not rebooked the venue. I'd love to do that. I would love to see Under the Cherry Moon as well, just in a cinema. Like it was, I mean, that's how it's meant to be seen. It was a particularly, actually, I think, Under the Cherry Moon, because scenically, it's the most artistic movie Prince made. So in a sense, that's the best kind of way to see the cinema, because you see this kind of wide, you know, the beautiful French Riviera. So yeah, I can see it. I think with a biopic, it's difficult because Prince was incredibly private and controlled what he wanted of himself out there. Also, he put much of his life and experiences into his lyrics for us. This is true. I mean, if you listen to some of the lyrics, lyric I was listening to the other day where it said, you know, what he would say to a younger version of himself, and you know, you might want to hang around and you're in for an amazing ride, sort of thing. It's there's a great lyric where he talks about, I wouldn't change anything except my next of kin. I wouldn't change anything except my next of kin, which is a really interesting line. But you're right, there's so much of Prince's passion, so much of Prince's love, hate, anger, beauty, religious leanings in his lyrics. It's true. I think he was a private person. Obviously some of that, you know, I mean, there's certain books that have been written about him, but you still don't feel you get a handle on exactly what he thought And sometimes he's the only person I know. I'll be honest with you. Prince is the only person I've ever seen where you have an interview, somebody interviews Prince, and at the end of it, you have more questions than you started with. You almost like have more questions and less answers, in the sense of he's just this kind of mystery wrapped up in this kind of strange illusion where he would talk, and sometimes you think I've got more questions, and you never felt you quite had a handle on him. He's very instinctive, and no, it's just he's just incredible. Keep rambling. Rambling is good. Thank you, Vault Curator. Bless. Oh dear. Vega, I was very strict about bands playing Prince after he died, including the Revolution and the NPG, but I'm a lot softer now. If people wants to play Prince, just play. I think this is interesting because I've been to a few shows. Obviously, I've seen the Revolution, the NPG, but I've also been to, there's a band, New Purple Celebration, who are like a kind of tribute band to Prince, and they're amazing musicians. And at first I thought, it's very difficult because some people are like, well, it's not Prince, I can't see them, but I think there's for some people seeing them dance to I'll just say bye to Funketeer. Oh, bless you. Thank you, Funketeer. You've been a star, and appreciate your comments. Thank you very much. And I saw them, and there were people dancing to Prince, and I turned around and watched loads of people dancing and happy and joyful to Prince, and they got on the stage, and this New Purple Celebration tribute band, they do songs by the time as well, and you know what, I just think if it gets people listening to Prince, you're right. I went to the one of the first shows after Prince passed, the autism show, and at the end, Mark Ronson, who I didn't really know huge amounts about, DJ, came on and played loads of Prince music, and I was right at the front, and I turned around, and it was just a hall full of people, happy, dancing, appreciating Prince, just the joy in their faces. They were happy. We just lost Prince, but his music was just bringing joy to so many people. And I thought, because at first I thought, well, he's just going to play the music, and he just played the music, and that was just the thing. It was just it just worked. It just had that. It's the music, and Prince's music was the highlight. It was amazing. It was amazing. It was also an amazing night because obviously the time were there. Larry Graham, CeeLo Green was there. It was just, but Mark Ronson playing Prince's music, and you're right. I'm softer now. I'm softer. I think like Vega, in the sense of if it stirs up memories of Prince, and the Revolution often talk about Prince when they're performing, and we see we've seen Ingrid Chavez, we've seen Eda Nelson. It's just sometimes amazing to see some of these artists, and it just does just it brings people happiness. So but yeah. I always wondered if Prince had input on his stage attire. I think in the 90s he had so many iconic and amazing outfits. MTV 92 yellow suit, but I can't help think after early 10s, not as good. 14 to 16. I mean, Prince obviously worked with designers, but he was very I know he drew a lot of the designs himself, and he worked with them and sort of said, I want this made, but I think he drew from people. I think there's no doubt he would kind of do that, but he was very much a creative force, as Mr. Ant says. He had this whole department of, I always imagine like loads of there's a clip in Love Sexy, a documentary, where you sort of see them working behind the scenes, but they're constantly working on clothes for Sheila Ree and clothes for Kat, and I think he took his inspiration from a lot of different places. I think he obviously worked, I think, with people to kind of, he had the idea and would draw that, but then I presume they often offered suggestions and input. It's certainly something that it's interesting because he put so much effort and time in it. You look at all the photo shoots he did, all the clothing he created. When you think about those things, actually, you know, it's amazing he had time to do music. It's really, I mean, he was just, I don't know when the guy slept. I don't think he did sleep, and I think that's quite crazy. Oh, but bless you. I should head off and let you all get to bed now because that would be nobody will ever get to sleep. 2014 to 16, he was challenging Sly to me, going for a futuristic look to go along with the artificial age concept. I really liked some of the I think you're right. Some of the outfits in 2014, he wore this black furry kind of tank top waistcoat thing, and this white underneath, and it looks so cool. It looks so cool, and I think you're right. I think he was really changing the way he was and going back to the afro, going back to it was this kind of Sly look. It was a kind of it was interesting. He really changed the way he was, and I think it was. It was really interesting. I personally, 2014 is one of my favorite periods. So you better not start me talking about that, as we will be here all night. Edgar, he even had personal designers for specific band members, but eventually they got too expensive. I can imagine. Can you imagine, like, having one for Matt Fink, or actually Matt Fink was probably one of the easier. Dr. Fink was probably one of the easier ones, but that's amazing, really. When you think about it, Paisley Park was a whole industry, and I think it's remarkable when you look at the peak. I don't mean artistically, I mean the peak of the amount of people who were working at Paisley Park. You see this big group photo and you see all the different departments, and then it went down to times when there was just Prince, just on his own, and it's amazing how many people did work there and how that kind of dwindled and flexed over time, and then down to kind of just an absolute minimum staff. People would turn up. They said Prince sort of once talked to I think it was a lady who turned up who was upset, and she turned up and he just went out and talked to her. And it's just weird to think of Prince, at times being alone there, but I don't think he was lonely. I think it was his, his beautiful place. Paisley Park is his mind, and that's the amazing thing. Anyway, I better let you all go because otherwise everybody will be complaining. But I just want to say thank you so much for being, who you are, and for just being here tonight. It just means the world to me, and I really do appreciate it. It's just, I feel like the luckiest guy that there is. I really do, and I can't thank any of you enough. I hope you all have amazing Christmases and an end of year, but I will see you before then. Don't worry. I'm going to be doing the draw for the book giveaway tomorrow, the Blue on the One book giveaway, and I'll be announcing that tomorrow. So good luck, everybody, for that. And I just want to say thank you for all your comments, because do you know what? Whatever we talk about, it's the passion and the knowledge of Prince fans that just constantly astounds me. It's absolutely brilliant. And bless you, Edgar. It means a lot to me. I mean, Edgar's, well, I think the world of Edgar. I think he's just an extraordinarily talented guy, and his knowledge is just incredible. I just feel like I'm a kid at a table full of grown-ups, and I just feel like I'm just so lucky. I really am, and thank you. And you all have a good night, and thank you from my bottom of my heart.